Today I'm playing with a new medium. Well, new to me, watercolor pencils. So stick around. Hello colorists, welcome to PencilStash, a weekly show all about coloring. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to get all the new content, and be sure to hit that like button if you're enjoying my videos. Now, as I may have alluded to here and there in the past, I really like the look of watercolor. They're so light and airy and almost look effortless. But they are not a medium that I am used to using. I'm very, very new to them, and I'm discovering that they are not effortless. So in my playing around, I came across watercolor pencils, or water-soluble pencils as they are sometimes called, and I thought, hey, I wonder if those would work on coloring book pages. So I thought we could give them a try. So I just got a cheap set to use for now. I didn't want to invest in them until I knew that I liked them. And these are a set called Punctuate. There's 25 pencils, and I got mine at Barnes & Noble for like around 15 bucks. Now they don't have names, just numbers, which kind of bums me out since color names are just always so much fun. So to get us started, let's sample out these colors. And I'm swatching this out on Strathmore watercolor paper, which is specifically designed for use with watercolor. It can stand up to all the water that we're going to be adding to it, so it'll be interesting to see how coloring book paper holds up. And as I go, again, I'll just sort of caveat all of this that I'm very new to watercolor, so I'm probably messing up a ton. But I'm hoping that with a little bit of practice that these could be a fun medium to break out every once in a while. And also, in full disclosure, this set did come with a watercolor brush, but it was absolute garbage. So that is right where I put it, in the garbage. So I am using a 1/4-inch sapphire watercolor brush. It's an oval wash brush, as well as the Faber-Castell water brush, which I'll show you both of these in a minute. I'm going to go into more depth about how these pencils are used and go into a bit more as we go. So as I swatch these out, I really like these colors. They're bright and poppy. Some of them are a little too close together for my liking, so my 25 set's probably more like a 20 set. Like some of these blues and some of the yellows, but it's all good. Let's see how they blend. And here's that sapphire watercolor brush that I told you about. I really like this brush. And I'm just going to do a quick gradient with a couple of my pencils here, maybe going from some golden yellows down to some deep greens. And because the water is going to activate the pigment, I don't have to be too precise about my blend areas, but I am overlapping and feathering them as I transition one color to the next. Now I'll take my brush and I'll load it up with water, not too much, it really should not be dripping. So utilize the lip of your water reservoir if you need to. And I'll just work lightest to darkest and just sort of drag back and forth some of these colors just to blend them very nicely together. And the cool thing about watercolor is that if you want to remove some color, you can actually just dry off your brush on a paper towel, so it's nice and dry, and reapply it to the wet paper, and the dry brush will actually remove some of the pigment. And you can do it in kind of full strokes like this, you can do it just kind of splotchy, really just depends on the look that you're going for. Now, I originally started this tutorial with an exercise using this T-Rex page from Imagimorphia. Since the pages in this book are so detailed and they truly test my patience while using regular colored pencils, I thought it would be fun to see what would happen if I used watercolor pencils on it. But as I started to add the water, this happened. Now, since this book has images and ink on both sides, the addition of the water made the ink on the opposite page show right through. Not a good look. So that's my very first lesson learned, to have a book that only has images on one side, which definitely limits me a little bit, but thankfully, because I have an ungodly amount of coloring books, I do have a few books that fit that description. So I chose a page from this book, Color the Rainforest by Marty Woods. It only has images on one side. So I removed the page entirely from the book just to eliminate the possibility that the water could damage the page underneath it, or that even that ink could kind of bleed into this page. So just to be safe, removed it entirely from the book. And the first thing I did was tape it down. And you do that for two reasons. Now, first, this paper is not watercolor paper. It's thinner, not as textured, and there is a very real possibility that it could ripple, not hold up to the addition of water very well. So the tape will help to maintain the shape of it, minimize that, keep everything in place. And the other reason is that the tape will also act as a resist. So as I'm putting watercolor right up against it, the watercolor will not bleed underneath. So when you remove the tape, it'll give you a nice crisp edge or a frame around your finished artwork. Also, if you want to protect your desk, if you have a wood one like I do, you can put something underneath your page as well, like another piece of paper, some kind of barrier, just to make sure that that whatever you put underneath it does not have a texture. As when you use your pencils, it could actually transfer the texture through your page, kind of like etching, and you definitely don't want that to happen. So just choose something really nice and smooth. Now let's try out our pencils on this background piece of wood. I always like the background items rather than the main objects of a page. Don't ask me why. I've always been that way. They're usually the thing that I color first. I just find them much more interesting, and I usually end up spending much more time on those objects rather than the main ones. No good reason, just like to. Now I'd love to see what this orange tone could add to our wood, so I'm just going to place this down in a few areas. And the way that these pencils work is that you place them down wherever you want, just like regular colored pencils. And you can feather and layer multiple colors, etc. And then you add the water. And the nice thing is that you can continue to layer color on top, either when the water is still wet or after when those layers dry. And you can continue to do that, basically until your paper just kind of gives out. So we're going to experiment with a little bit of both. And we'll add in both of these light browns that we have from our set in a few areas just to try to deepen this tone here. But these are coming out very, very light, so I know that this is just going to be my first layer. And real quick, I just want to show you this Faber-Castell water brush. It has a built-in water reservoir that releases the water towards the bristles as you use it. So we're just going to fill up the reservoir. It's kind of like a syringe. And it's got a little button on the side to get the water flowing. So when the bristles are wet, you are good to go. And we're just going to do the big areas first. So I'm just going to use my wash brush. And you can see how light this all is, which is just fine, but again, we're definitely going to be layering on top of that. It's just way too light. All right, now we're just going to let this dry for a few minutes and we'll be back. Okay, just saying, as someone who loves colored pencils, I am so not used to waiting for things to dry. Very, very foreign concept. All right, let's go now with this darker brown. We're just going to start to deepen some of these orangey tones, add in some more detail. And again, first with the colored pencil, and then we'll add some water to it. Ooh, actually, you know what I want to do? I want to add in some greens to our tree bark. Give it a little bit more of a natural look, give it a little bit more color variation. So I'm just going to put this right over top of only the areas that are still dry. I'll go back later to the areas that I just put the water down. I really like the dimension that the mossy green adds, so I'll just keep putting more and more in. I don't know if it's really showing up that well on camera, but it is showing up a little bit better for me in person, and it is just kind of adding some tone variations to our wood here, because it's just coming out very, very light. Okay, now we're going to go wild and crazy and try our pencils on a wet surface. So we're going to start putting down a light wash of water with our brush. And then we're going to draw right over top with our colored pencil. This is coming out super, super pigmented, and it really does help to get a deeper, darker color like I've been looking for. And I like this, but it is a little bit much. So I am going to go back in with a very slightly wet brush, and I'm just going to soften this up a bit. It's just a little bit too contrasty for me next to the light, soft layers that we did before, but I am definitely liking this. So I am liking this, so I'm going to do this same technique over the edges and the lines over the bark that the artist has already given us. And then I'll have to go in later too and just kind of shade underneath the newt, just kind of follow, some of the shape of his body, just so that it looks like he has a little bit of some shape and some weight to him. And looking at this little guy, he is drawn super, super cute. He's made up of leaves and flowers, and his tail is actually my favorite part. It's actually one of the reasons that I chose this page. It's a really cute flat leaf shape, and I have no clue yet what I'm really going to do with him, what colors I'll use, but I'll kind of figure that out as I go. Also, he's surrounded by fireflies, so maybe we'll do the background dark. But the black and the gray that we swatched out are so painfully light, so I'm not sure what we're going to do here yet, but again, we'll figure it out. Now for the tighter areas where my wash brush can't get into, I'm going to use that Faber-Castell water brush since the brush tip on it is much thinner. And as I get more into this hobby, I'm definitely going to be investing in a wider variety of watercolor brushes, shapes, and sizes. They come in a ton. If you've ever been in that aisle of the art supply store, it is a little bit overwhelming. And I wonder how some red, orangey tones would look. Again, I'm just really kind of painfully longing for a little bit of tone variation here, so let's just try this out. Oh, no. Abort. Don't like that. Well, I've committed, so I'm going to add this around just a little bit across the log, just sparingly, just so that it isn't in one glaring spot like the big old whoops that it was. So test your colors, kids. So for the sake of time, I colored the newt off camera since I knew that I was going to be slowly experimenting, and this is how he came out. And I found a really awesome color combination that I really like, so I wanted to share it with you guys, and I'll test it out on this big leaf cluster here. So the first layer that I did was just kind of an all-over layer, pencil layer of the lightest kind of chartreuse green color. And then before I add my water, I'm going to add all my colors. So the next layer is just a little bit of this blue-green over top, kind of down the spine, and then just really, really lightly kind of feather it, again, along that spine. And then as we use the water, we'll just kind of blend it out. And I'm going to finish it off with just some subtle additions with this red-orange color. The addition of this looks very fun, very tropical, kind of makes me want an umbrella in my drink. I really, really like the way that this color combo came out. And when you add the water, it just brightens everything up. Now, one last thing that I wanted to show you with these pencils is that you don't have to color the entire surface. So for example, on these firefly wings, I'm only going to put this yellow along the edges. And then when I add the water, I'm going to slowly sort of pull the pigment up, draw it upwards towards the white area, and it will fade out very, very nicely. All right, now what to do with this background. All right, let's make some test swatches. Let's try this black again by itself. Okay, no, let's try black and blue layered together. Okay, let's try black, blue, and purple layered together. Nope, no. Let's try a bunch of blues. Oh God, no. Okay. Instead of that, we are going to go the opposite end of the spectrum, and we're going to use an alcohol marker. And this is my ColorIt alcohol marker in black. And this puppy is dual-sided. One side is a nice fine tip for getting in the little nooks and crannies like I'm using now, and the other side is a chisel tip for the bigger areas so that I don't go out of my mind trying to do it with the finer tip. Now, what I like about this is the contrast. We've got the deep, super pigmented look of the marker against the softer, lighter colors of the watercolor pencils. And I realize I'm going to have to be covering up these little black dots around the smaller firefly circles, but that's okay. I actually have an idea. I'm going to fix those later. I'm also going to use a ruler and a pencil to give myself a nice frame here so that I have a great straight line to stop against. And 10 minutes later, this is how the background came out. And now I'm going to go back in with my Posca paint pen in white to add those little dots back in. And I'm even going to break out my gold metallic marker and color in the bodies of these little fireflies. But in the end, this is how our page came out. Not bad for an early attempt at our watercolor pencils. I certainly learned a lot about these pencils from this exercise, and I'd love to see if I can work with these, deepen the tones, kind of get a bit more variation, sharpen my skills, play with some more color combos. So definitely a work in progress type of medium for me, but we'll continue to play and have some fun with these. Have you guys ever used watercolor pencils? Do you guys have any tips for me? Leave a comment down below, pass on your knowledge. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial. If you want more of my content, there's tons of videos on my channel where I tackle lots more coloring related things. And if you like this video and want to see more, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, guys. Thanks again for watching. Happy coloring.